Hello and welcome to the year we started a podcast. It's a podcast born Phoenix-like from the year what the
You're the co-host, Nick.
Nick, we've done this. This is our 49th time doing this intro.
Well, I wouldn't expect you to know how to do it.
I was scrolling. Thank you. I was scrolling through our show notes, and I don't know why, but I accidentally read more than I should have read, and it was bad. But yeah, you're the co-host, Nick. I'm the other co-host, Jeff, and
that's me.
You can also follow us at Time with Sep on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but not Snapchat. You can also follow us.
That's the outro. Jeff, that was the other side.
Yeah, no, I did bad. Anyways, okay, so this is a podcast where we like to come together and talk about some of the things that are fun and interesting to us. And we do a really good job with our intro, like 45% of the time, I'd say. It's probably somewhere around there anyways.
Yeah, I think that's right. This is the correct assessment.
I feel like we need to come up with... So, like, we have this week I hurt myself, like, as a good, reliable topic that we talk about. I do feel like we need to come up with, this week I had a socially awkward something that caused me lots of anxiety, and then I figured out a way past it, corner.
Okay.
You got any good names for that? Like, while I think about how to explain this?
Not at all.
Okay, if you can work on that over the next week, I'd really appreciate it. Because, like, this is like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll get a good acronym that just rolls off the tongue for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. If you could do better than what I just said, or better than our podcast in general, like, honestly, the bar is pretty low. Okay, if you can think of that, I really appreciate it. Okay, so here's okay. I feel so embarrassed. This more than probably anything is the best example of the things that go through my head. So we recently moved headquarters. Recently, I mean, like, it's been flipping a year and a half, but like half of that time was COVID, so we were at home. But we've recently moved headquarters for my job, and the closest good coffee place that you can get to, in my opinion, anyways, at least by car, is a place where if you go and you order a coffee, when you check out at this place, and like the place that we can go to is only drive-through, like there's no inside, like it's only drive-through. So it's like the perfect COVID-friendly coffee delivery service where you just drive up, make your order, drive off, etc. There's no other options. But what they do is when you go to pay, they ask you, do you want to leave a tip on the card? Like when you give them your card, like, do you want to give a tip on this order?
Yeah.
And Nick, I am more than willing to tip people in almost any circumstance, and including this circumstance. But the problem is I'm ordering like $1.89 coffee, and I can't for the life of me like tip less than like $1 or $2. Like, what am I gonna say? Like, oh yeah, I would like to tip you. I would like to tip you 30 cents. I would like to tip you
20% of
I want to tip you 10%. Yeah, I would. If you could add 18% or 18 cents to my bill.
Pretty generous, I think. But
here's like $1.50. I'm really grateful for your service. Like, it is like every time I'm like, yeah, sure, just $2 is fine. That is add $2. But it's like, that's more than my coffee. Like, what am I supposed to do?
I come here for the affordable coffee.
Like, I come here because you are like the only, honestly, it's not even that it's the best coffee. It's the only it's the closest drive-through coffee place to where I work.
This is so fantastic.
It's just like,
I love it.
there was one time where they didn't ask me, and it was like, oh, I would pay you so much if you could just, like, can I pay you like $100 to like never have to do this again? It makes me so annoyed.
You should say it like, hey, I'm going to give a one-time tip of $100 to offset all of my tips.
Please
from
tell
now
your
until
friends.
Forever.
I'll take a picture. I'll print off a picture of my car. You hang it up on like the wall of no tips because I've tipped you so much. And like you could just like every time I come, you could just take like $1 or $2 out of the jar of no tips. And like you can tell me when it runs out, and I'll do it with no questions asked. Nick,
quality.
It is so like
No, it sounds
because
pretty
like
uncomfortable.
it's
to
like
be honest
this,
with you, Jeff, this sounds pretty uncomfortable.
no, and it's like they ask every time except for like the one time, like out of the like the half a dozen that I've done. But like when they ask, it's like, do you want to leave a tip? If so, how much? I'm just like, I don't tip 200% at restaurants, Nick.
No.
That's not typically a thing.
You don't go to restaurants and tip them $20 on your freaking sandwich?
The funny thing, the crazy thing is, like, I am not a cheap person when it comes to tips. Like, I love doing it.
I know you're not. That's not what I'm saying.
But when I'm getting a coffee,
it feels a little disproportionate when you're buying a $2 product. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like, do I want to tip this person 100%? I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So I did, though. I saw the person in front of me today. They were paying with an app for this place. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Nick, there might be a chance that I could handle all of this without having to talk to them.
Yeah.
And Nick, you can set your default tip percentage. And
so what I 20, you're doing
that's
God's
exactly
work,
what I did.
20%.
I said it at 20%. I feel like that's perfectly fine. And now they just scan my thing and it auto reloads when I'm done. And I feel a little bit bad because technically I am tipping these people 40 cents on my coffee. But like, I don't feel like it's fair. They put me in a very terrible position.
You just tell them like, I usually buy for the whole office, so it's just the default. I'm not bothered. You'll ever have that conversation, Jeff. You've avoided the conversation forever. You've done that's like the introvert dream. You've literally figured out the miracle.
Yeah. But it's like, it's literally like, I feel guilty a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, hi, would you like to pay our prices, or would you like to pay like 30% more than what Starbucks would charge you? And like, I don't feel like that's a fair thing to ask me. Like in the moment, like while I'm handing you my card. Actually, it's after I hand them the card. Like they already have the card in their hand. Like, do you want to leave a tip? I'm like, why would you do this to me?
And the thing is I wouldn't even care like at all about that situation, except that with coffee, it's like such a regular thing, and like even then, it's probably like pretty irrelevant, right? Like it's probably a pretty low consequence dollar extra that you're adding onto your life. But at the same time, it's like every single time you can't have a conversation with them. You couldn't just have the conversation and say like, dude, I tip well. I've tipped you guys well, but I want to stop tipping 100% on my coffee because it's just
I feel so guilted into it. Like
yeah, like 100%.
Like I understand,
100%,
like I do 100% appreciate what you've done, and I do want to leave something, but like I don't feel like every time I should have to double up on the cost of a drink. Like that doesn't feel fair.
Doesn't seem right.
Like you just had to all you had to do was pull down on the thing and then you hand it to me. Like that doesn't feel like it should cost double now.
Oh, all they had to do. No, I'm kidding.
But anyways, I don't like tipping in general. Like, I don't mean that in the sense that I don't tip, but like, I don't like the weird social parts of tipping in general. Like, it just is so weird.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that it's like really uncomfortable because like, I don't know how to put it, but like, I'm pretty comfortable with the idea that like, okay, our economy is set up in such a way that like our like, or not, I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, but like I understand that our economy is set up in such a way that like some low wage workers are gonna get a lot of their money like effective income through tipping, and like therefore it's like kind of like the right thing to do to support them at, like when you are patroning their business or whatever the hell. It's kind of weird. I think it's kind of strange, but like it's a thing. But the thing is, it's not like you can't like gracefully be like, no, I don't want to tip you today. I'm gonna tip you a small amount. Like you're literally, the person is watching you. The person is in front of you, and you're choosing how much you like communicate that you value what they did for you. It's really awkward. I don't know, man. I don't know if I explained that well, but it's really like bizarre. I don't know.
And like I would be so much more on board for this if I was like at dinner and like I'm tipping on a $30 bill, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'd happily tip you like $8, $9, whatever. Like I'm happy. Like that's like for me that works a lot easier. It's just like here's your $1.89 coffee. How much would you like to tip me today? It's just like, I wasn't prepared for this conversation at all. And like, it feels so gross to say anything less than like a $2. Like
it does. It
feels like I would like to tip you 80 cents. Like, what am I supposed to say? It's terrible.
It's honestly like it feels rude to even say like 80 cents or whatever. You know what I mean?
It feels rude to say $1. Like I feel gross to say that. But like if I don't say that, then I'm saying like I would like to tip you more than what I paid the entire company that made this drink for me. Yeah. And like that also feels weird. I don't know. I don't like that sort of tipping on super low dollar amounts is gross. I feel very weird about that. But hopefully the app makes you feel a little bit less weird, but the whole thing I still feel very gross about. I feel bad. I don't know.
It's a weird world we live in, Jeff. That's what I've decided.
Tipping. So silly. Okay, Nick, tell me what you got going on.
Jeff, I have an update on the WNBA playoffs. Because
really?
I said that I was going to watch some of the WNBA this year. I didn't watch very much of the regular season because I didn't watch frickin' anything. Jen and I had, like I said, one show. We were 5 weeks behind on it at one point. It's only 8 episodes in. We're not doing a great job. Anyways, more importantly,
that's all right.
Yeah. It's probably a good thing. It just means I'm not watching TV. But I've been watching a little bit of the WNBA playoffs, and it is super freaking fun. And we are in the It's in the semifinals right now.
They don't do best of 7 there. They do something else.
Yeah. So right now, the semifinals is best of 5. And round 1 and round 2 were both single elimination, which was
oh man, that is intense.
It kind of was. So I made it a point that I was going to watch the Phoenix Mercury because they've got Taurasi, and we talked about Taurasi on here before, and she's badass. And then of course I didn't know that she was hurt for the first game, and I was like, wait, hey guys, I tuned in. Hey, can you ask her to play? Can you ask her to play her? No, that's not good. But she was hurt for game 1 of the playoffs. And that first game went down to the buzzer, and then the second game went to overtime again off the buzzer. And then the Phoenix Mercury advanced through the first 2 rounds of single elimination, both by like the freaking skin of their teeth. And then they lost to one of the 2 favorites for the season that have like really performed well, the Las Vegas Aces. And they are playing tonight. Actually, they probably just started playing. They probably just started. Yeah, and I've got it recording downstairs, and I'm super hyped to go watch it. The Aces in the first game had like 3 backcourt members just freaking pop off, including one girl who had 12 assists on like 0 turnovers, or like just a gross amount of low amount of turnovers, and kind of had that. She had like a little bit of that Kyrie flair where you're like, how come Kyrie can just get wherever he wants, and every time he does so, it's like every time he does so, you feel like everyone else is not playing the game at the same level. And I love watching that from anybody. It doesn't matter if they're a high schooler picking on other high schoolers. So it's super fun and entertaining. Yeah. So there's 2 best of 5s going on right now. One is between the Connecticut Sun and the Chicago Sky. And that is Chicago is leading that one right now 1-0, and the other semifinal is between the Las Vegas Aces and the Phoenix Mercury. The Mercury are down 1-0 right now. Connecticut and Las Vegas were both like super favorites. Their regular season standings were crazy. They're like 28-6 or something like that.
Man, I'm trying to see if I can get this recording started too, because like I've basically learned that I just need to take all your recommendations on sports stuff to watch, because I had so much fun watching all the downhill stuff last week.
Well, plus we get to talk about it, right? If we both watch a thing, then we get to talk about it. It makes it better. Yeah.
Like sports and somebody else that watched the same thing that you did is like the best thing ever.
Yes. Oh, what I was going to tell you too is, so I decided to watch the Mercury side, and then and I was like gonna try and watch the Connecticut Sun game. I was like, oh, it's semifinals, whatever. Let's do it. And there was a double overtime like thriller, and I didn't watch it. And I was like, guys, you can't do this. You can't like kill me with like giving me the double overtime thriller on the game I didn't end up watching. Like, and I didn't record. It was like the only one I didn't record so far. and I haven't found time to watch the other ones on the other side of the bracket. Like there was a really good game too on the other side of the bracket that I didn't watch, and I was like bummed at myself, but I was already like a little bit removed. And yeah. But story short, both series look really close, really good, and yeah.
How like does it have a similar cadence to NBA games where like sometimes you'll have like back-to-back nights and then sometimes you'll have like a 2-3 days break? Like when is the finals actually expected to start?
The finals are expected to start in like the second week of October. I don't actually know when the finals are, but I know that like if these games go to game 5, or if these series go to game 5, they're both slated to finish on the 8th or the 9th. The 8th. And there is 2 or 3 days, or like there is at least 1 day's rest between each of these games. Okay. But the weird thing has been so far that most of the broadcasts have been double headers. And that's like the cadence they're continuing for the semifinals is like it's going to be double headers for all of these. So like the nice thing with the Mercury too has been that some of them have been the later broadcasts for me, so that has been nice as well. Yeah, because otherwise it's like a 5 p.m. Western time start. Yeah,
I do have now all of the rest of the series and playoffs in general for the WNBA set to record. So if you are watching anything, definitely hit me up. I will be ready to watch.
I will. And the other cool thing that I have really appreciated from the WNBA side is they have full game highlights that I think are more tightly edited and that still have a ton of content on their website, easily accessible. It's like, to me, it's more accessible and better edited than the NBA's highlights. And so like even the games that I haven't watched, I just like watch like a 6-minute click through, and it's like, oh man, Griner, or not Griner, I guess, because I watched all Griner's games, but like, you know, whoever had like a killer game, I get to watch someone hit like 6 for 7 for 3 or something. Like it's fun.
There's a lot of soccer stuff I've gotten into that way too, like really tightly edited, like well produced highlights, and you feel like you've watched an entire game more or less, like to kind of get the gist of what happened without having to spend the 90 to 120 minutes to actually watch the thing.
Right. Like everybody's going to go through a phase where they either are busy or feel busy, but still want to be connected to something with sports. And like that makes perfect sense that helped you with soccer, because like it just makes the whole sport feel more accessible. And I was a little bit daunted at myself because I like had been trying to record some of the regular season games and like only ended up watching one. And I was like, man, 2.5 hours. Like I never spend 2.5 hours in front of the TV, and I basically have to like force Jen to be in front of the TV when she's like already like, no, I want to go do stuff. And I'm like, but I gotta watch the WNBA.
Well, what it can do is like really, like even if you're not paying like the 2.5 hours every single game or whatever, it lets you have a little bit of context when it becomes like the playoffs, and then the playoffs get serious.
Exactly.
And, like, you have that context where you're emotionally invested, which means when the playoffs actually happen, like it is an entirely different experience than had you just, watched the occasional update on the ESPN app on the scores or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, Nick, my main topic, the Cuckoos Egg. Do you have any idea what this is?
This is straight out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a book I still am meaning to read. Let me check my notes here.
It's a little different.
Longer than I've been alive. I meant to read it in high school or something, I think. So I know a lot about it, basically. That's all I know about the word cuckoo. Cuckoo? I don't know. There you go.
I don't know exactly how to say it. Do you know who Cliff Stoll is? Okay. So The Cuckoos Egg is a book written by Cliff Stoll. Well, it was released in the year I was born, in 1989. But the story itself happened in, this happened in 1986 is when this originally started. And he was in Berkeley College back in the 80s, and he was a person who was an astronomer by trade, and was a person who had access to some of the computers in the Berkeley laboratory. and he was asked to look into an accounting error of 75 cents on their computer uses accounts. Having gone this far into it, Mr. Cliff stole 75 cents, Berkeley, 1986. Any of this ring any bells at this point?
No, not at all.
1986, accounting error of 75 cents. He got asked to like try to figure out what was going on, and he found a particular user that had used 9 seconds of computer time and not paid for it. Back then, you would have to pay for every single like minute or second or whatever of computer time that you used.
Okay.
Like, because it was all like nobody had their own computers. Like you would have to, it was all like you would rent that time, especially of anything that was capable of computing anything significant.
Right.
And what he realized quickly was they were imposing as a super user on those computers by exploiting a couple different vulnerabilities. And he's like a very eccentric guy and a very obsessive guy. And so he follows like everything that this guy is doing. And it's like the whole story is super crazy. And like, you have to read this book. It's called, like I said, The Cuckoos Egg. But, basically what it comes down to is he's watching this hacker trying to figure out what they're trying to get into, and they are searching the Berkeley lab for any references to nuclear or strategic SDI, which is Strategic Defense Initiative. He also was like making copies of password files and like all like he was like it was like very clear this was some foreign person trying to get into.
Yeah, what the hell?
Trying to get into
Military
U.S. intelligence
sorry.
stuff. Like he is very clearly up to no good, and like was originally told like he was just being a little bit crazy, and ended up being in contact with like the NSA, FBI, etc. And like the whole story is super, super cool.
Off a 75-cent accounting error.
Right. Like
That's
a totally
wild.
like a totally innocuous thing. It's just like, oh, this is a little bit off. Like we haven't charged somebody like what they should be charged. Can you go figure out why this is? And this astronomer nerd figured out like, oh, there's somebody who's on here who shouldn't be, and then like got obsessed with it and dove real deep and turned into an entire thing that is it is worth the read for sure.
For sure. That sounds super interesting, honestly. Like yeah, like that's super I love that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like that what's the guy, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. There's a famous serial killer was found out because of like unpaid parking tickets or something ridiculous like that, which is like, I love that kind of like weird, random, innocuous stuff that like, how in the world would that have been an issue? Yeah, it's just, or how would that have been the hint, the thing that broke the camel's back, or like the thing that exposed some. Yeah, I find that like the way that our world is interconnected in these really minute ways to be super interesting.
So as a person who's worked in IT, like I have found these sort of things really, really interesting. And the book is super, super great, and I do recommend it like wholeheartedly. He is a very funny and weird and quirky author, but like this was computers in the 80s. Like he does a great job of encapsulating that weirdness of how that worked. But since the 80s, there have been lots of other things, Nick, that have been this sort of thing. They get more sophisticated, and eventually you kind of get into computer viruses and worms and etc.
Yep.
And at the end of this, I'm going to talk about what my favorite one is. But I do want to like kind of give a timeline up until that point. So that's my topic this week. I want to talk to you about people wanting to do not so great things using computers, starting back when, good old Cliff Stoll was looking at people in Berkeley.
Malicious actors, or there's a term for this, right? Like, not important. Sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, I just going to fly through a handful of these because, like, here's the thing. I do IT stuff for a living, but I don't do security stuff for a living, so I don't want to pretend that I know a ton about the actual technical part of these, but just more like the interesting like things that we've developed along the way, and some of the weird things that were less maliciously intended. But anyway, so Nick, back in the late 90s, there was the Melissa virus. Have you ever heard of the Melissa virus?
I have not.
So what the Melissa virus was, it really didn't do much except for propagate itself very, very well. So it was like one of the first like spam emails that existed.
Okay.
So it was a message that said, here's the document that you asked for, and it had an attachment. And if you open the attachment, it would send this exact email to your top 50 Outlook contacts.
Okay.
And it would also then open a ton of porn sites, which is super cool.
When was this?
1999.
Okay, for sure.
So it infected like 100,000 computers, like
Just
in the
so
first.
you know, in my brain, I thought you said 89, and I was like, there weren't porn. I didn't even know Outlook was a thing in 89. I was like, what are you talking about? That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it infected like 100,000 computers. It ended up having $80 million in damages. And the person who originally did that, got 20 months in prison and a $5,000 fine. They named it the Melissa virus because it was his favorite stripper from Florida, something. So super classy.
Sounds like a good guy. Sounds like a good guy.
Super good.
I was expecting it to be like a female like hacker or something. No, it's just some weirdo at a strip club.
So next up on the list is a similar virus from a year later in 2000. It was called the I Love You virus. I assume you've never heard of this either.
I've heard of the I Love You virus.
Okay, you have.
Yeah.
So what the I Love You virus was, it was a very similar virus where you would receive an email. It was done right after Windows started hiding extensions. So like if you had a .text file, it would hide the .text and just show you what the file name was.
Yep.
But like people weren't familiar with that yet. So it was like I love you .text, and then the hidden extension was .vbs, which was Visual Basic Script, which meant that it could do all kinds of things. It literally did like the exact same thing, but more effectively. It affected 45 million computers in just a couple days. And it sent it to everybody on your contact list, and not just the top 50, literally to everybody. But the thing about it was, it didn't just do that, which like the Melissa virus like jammed up email, but
Right.
I Love You virus replaced like all like doc files, image files, music files, etc. They were all replaced by the virus itself, and so
Nice.
yeah, not great,
Not great.
not great. And it cost $10 billion in damages.
Yeesh.
10 billion with a B.
Yeesh. As you said, the damage, I guess it makes sense. Like replacing those kinds of documents and like photos and stuff, that's like high impact stuff.
Yeah, basically, like if you had the backup copy of it, it wasn't a big deal. But if you did not, like you were just out of luck. And for a lot of places that like were smaller or like less prepared for this sort of thing, like they were just totally screwed. Like there was no recovering from it.
Yeah, lots of people don't. I mean, I know you're talking like we're talking enterprise level for that kind of thing, but like for smaller businesses. But I mean, from a personal standpoint, most people don't back up, right? Like so.
So a little bit later, there was Slammer. Does that ring a bell at all?
No, Slammer, I don't know.
So Slammer was like 2003 and like literally broke the internet temporarily. It was like one of the first real big SQL injection things, which is like really near and dear to my heart because that's what I do for a living is SQL stuff. But it basically exploited a thing in Microsoft SQL Server and caused it to spread to other SQL servers across basically anywhere on the internet. It infected 75,000 servers in 10 minutes. That is a lot. That is terrifying to me to even think about. Like as a person who works in IT, that is terrifying. And thankfully it got caught quickly. Like the thing about all these are honestly, like especially this one and the I Love You exploit was like these were things that were like patched, like the vulnerabilities were patched beforehand, but just people hadn't patched yet. Like these were vulnerabilities that were known. They just, by and large, people hadn't taken the time to update their systems accordingly, which is really understandable. Like, you got lots of things to worry about. Maybe installing the most up-to-date version of whatever it is isn't necessarily a thing that you're super pressed on doing. Yeah, so Slammer really, it spread so quickly, it like broke the internet. There's lots of crazy stories about it. At the end of the day, it wasn't quite as costly as the I Love You virus because it didn't like necessarily corrupt anything. It was more that it just caused things to not run and work well. But the person who actually did it was never caught. It's crazy. Pretty weird.
That is kind of crazy. You'd think, like, with how sophisticated we are, like the amount of resources that we could throw at cybersecurity, like internationally and stuff, that like you'd find everybody.
So the last one I want to mention before I go into my favorite one, I mean, if you can put the quotes around favorite one hard enough.
Yeah.
So this one was the first one that I had experienced that was like pretty widespread while I was actually working in IT, which was the Wannacry ransomware virus.
Yeah, I remember Wannacry.
Yeah, so it was very weird because the actual people that seemed to have made Wannacry didn't really make much money. Like they made like $100K or something like that,
right.
Which if you're going to put yourself as a target for the entire world's worth of internet security people, it's probably not worth it. But
right.
It was a result of an exploit that was found by the NSA and
I assume that it was from white hat people at NSA, right?
I think so, and it ended up getting exploited by some less than ideal governments across the world. It ended up having a kill switch that was found, and it was very, very fortunate that was found because it could have been a lot worse. But it still was extremely threatening, and I do remember being very, very much aware of its existence back 4 years ago.
Yep. So WannaCry came out at the same time as another piece of ransomware, right?
It did. What was the name of it? It was 2017, give or take.
Yeah, because there's something else too. Because WannaCry wasn't the one that was abusing the Intel architecture, was it? The other one was, right?
No, there was another one close to WannaCry. Anyways, Nick, I say all of this lead in to tell you the story that is my favorite. My favorite internet virus sort of story of all time.
Tell me.
And I'm not sure if you'll know this or not. I've said this before. Like I joke sometimes about our age difference, which is increasingly insignificant as we get older.
But there's moments in life that it was significant.
There's small.
There's like
thing.
a window.
Nick, did you have a MySpace? Let's start with that.
I did have a MySpace.
You did have a MySpace.
I did.
Okay, there's a chance we may intersect here. Before I even go, do you know what I'm going to talk about?
No, what?
Do you know about Samy Camcar?
Samy Camcar?
Okay, so back in the MySpace days, they were the #1 site on all of the internet. And Samy was he was a young kid, a teenager who was getting into coding at the time. And back then, there were tons of permission vulnerabilities, like just with websites in general.
Okay.
And do you remember how MySpace worked? Like you would have like your top 6 friends, and like you would add people, and like,
top 4, top 8, top 6,
4,
top 6
whatever
is not correct. It was so just want to be clear here. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the big things you could do, like you could have at your main page, you could have like a little quote or whatever. I don't remember exactly.
Quotes, songs, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
you could do all kinds of like real basic like secondary like web page editing crap, right?
So what he did was he wrote a script that if anybody visited his page, it would say, it would add to that, but most of all, Samy Is My Hero, as well as a piece of script that would invite everybody of that person's page to be his friend and add that, so it would add that to their bio. And add everybody that was in their friends list to be his friend. And as you might imagine. And so like anybody who would then visit their page would then get the same thing. But most of all, Samy Is My Hero, and then invite everybody to be Sammy's friend.
Oh, yeah,
this
is really good.
This Nick,
high quality.
This spread very fast. So, he did it late at night. He woke up the next morning, and 10,000 people had become his friend. And an hour later, 50,000 people had become his friend. We're talking like early 2000s internet, Nick.
Yeah,
like that is a lot of people.
That's really good.
He quickly realized like this is maybe bad, and so tried to delete his MySpace. And they said like back then though, you couldn't like just delete your MySpace, like they had to be reviewed or whatever. So like it had to be reviewed, like, and they said like 24 hours later we'll get back to you or whatever. Like within like a few hours after that, over 1 million people were his friend, and then the site crashed.
He tried. This poor Sammy tried to save MySpace. Said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Please delete me." They're like, "Oh, we'll get back to you." Oh, we're down, and we're down.
So like it's absolutely crazy. But what happens later is even crazier in my opinion, because like this is kind of the Wild West of the days of the internet.
Yeah.
He was like super worried that like he would get in trouble for doing what he did, and that's why he like tried to delete his MySpace. And nothing really happened right away. But 6 months later, a bunch of authorities show up to a car that's like outside his apartment, and they're like trying to figure out if if this is his car, and it was. And then they arrest him. Or I'm sorry, they don't arrest him right away. I think they like go to his apartment, like take him to his apartment, and they like literally take everything that could possibly be connected to the internet. And then they arrest him, and then he goes to court and ends up originally getting sentenced to like a couple years in jail. I think he ended up with 3 years of probation with no internet. He was only allowed to have one computer during that entire 3 years, and it was not allowed to be on the internet whatsoever.
This is really extreme.
And he had to serve 720 hours of community service.
What?
And got a $20,000 fine. Like this is like an 18-year-old kid. I don't know exactly how it was when he was sentenced, but like that to me is just so wild. Like a thing that was completely just like
he should have gotten a slap on the wrist. Yeah,
it was like internet mischief, but like there was no real like rules or laws or anything about like what was okay or not okay. And he was made an example of, and it was just really wild to have somebody who like had a thing that made everybody say that most of all, Samy is my hero, and added everybody who looked at it as a friend. Like,
it's a goof.
It was a goof. And it did bring down the biggest website in the entire planet for a little bit.
Yeah, and that sucks, but like it was a goof, dude. Like it was not like a big deal. I feel so bad for this kid.
I like reading about it is so bad. Like he's turned it into a career just talking about it. So it's like it's worked out, I suppose.
Well, good.
But it is just like the fact that like some kid who knew a little bit about how to code stuff was able to do something, which like the source code is out there. Like you can literally just go like a Wikipedia or whatever and read the source code. It's not complicated.
No.
Like, this is a pretty glaring vulnerability with how websites worked back then.
Right.
And like just to have that be something that could honestly ruin a young kid's life because of something that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
In his mind that it like exploded way bigger than he expected.
And by the way, like even if he'd said like I'm going to destroy this website, he's like an 18-year-old kid with a computer. He shouldn't have the ability to do so, and like he shouldn't have the ability to do so without. I don't know, man. This is like very. I don't know. This like bugs me to hear. 'Cause, like, it sounds like not obviously not a victimless crime. That's like way off base. But just it sounds like the kind of thing that shouldn't have happened. And the only reason it happened to begin with is because of like. I don't know. I like am frustrated to hear this kid get punished so harshly because you and I both know that like lots of people get away with doing a whole bunch of stuff. Like white collar crime is not pursued like very harshly at all. And like how does a kid end up getting this harsh of a the book thrown at him this hard? That sucks.
It does suck. So I did want to look at exactly how old he was, just to give proper context. So he was born in 1985, and this happened in 2005. So he was 19 or 20 years old. So yeah, that sucks, dude. That sucks so bad.
Even if he was a prick, that sucks. It's too young. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it now. He was 19 years old when this originally happened. So yeah, this is so hard.
And honestly,
oh, man.
Before you told me that, it was a great
it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, right? Sam, like adding at the end of bios, but most of all, Samy Is My Hero is freaking awesome. That's hilarious.
In my mind, this kid just wanted to wake up and go to his college class the next morning and be like, "Oh, I heard I was your hero." You know what I mean? Like, that's all he wanted. Oh my god!
But turns out that was quite infectious. Poor MySpace.
Well, I'm glad the guy, it turned out okay for him.
Nick, anyways, we're going to go record our Patreon-only podcast, which is the year we started another podcast. You can check that out at patreon.com/TiWasap. I will say, of all of them that we've recorded, there's been 35 of them so far, I think. This is the one I'm most excited to record now, number 36. I think it is hilarious. It is about the NFL, and it is about picking teams that are going to win and other stuff. And I'm excited just to talk to Nick about it. But if you want to, check that out. Like I said, patreon.com/TiWasap.
You can also follow us at TiWasap on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but not Snapchat. And you can find all of that at TiWasap.com.
Nicholas, thank you so much for potting with me.
You are welcome. This has been the year we started the podcast. Thank you for listening.